There are moments in life when the universe itself seems to pause, watching in silence as something beyond reason unfolds. It happened in Korya City, one ordinary morning. The streets bustled as they always did, filled with vendors calling out their daily specials, the rhythmic hum of motorcycles weaving through traffic, and the distant chatter of students arguing over exam results. But today, something had changed. In the heart of an abandoned lot, where weeds once reigned supreme, a tree now stood, tall, ancient, and otherworldly. Its bark shimmered with streaks of silver, as though moonlight had been woven into its very fibers. The branches stretched wide, heavy with golden-hued fruit that pulsed gently, as if alive. No one had seen it planted, no one could explain its presence, and yet, there it was, defying every law of nature. The whispers began almost instantly. Was it a miracle? A sign? Or perhaps something more sinister? The first brave souls approached, reaching out, their fingers trembling with anticipation. But no sooner had their hands brushed against the fruit than the tree recoiled, its branches retreating as if in refusal. The crowd gasped. Again and again, different people attempted to pluck the fruit, shopkeepers, children, even the elderly, but each time the tree denied them. Then came Leona. She had not pushed through the crowd. In fact, she had lingered at the back, hesitant, unsure if she even belonged in this moment. A girl of quiet resilience, she had spent her life in the shadows of others, unremarkable to most, an afterthought in her own home. But something about the tree called to her. It wasn't curiosity, it wasn't greed, it was as though the tree itself had been waiting. The moment she stepped forward, a hush settled over the crowd. The air thickened, and the sounds of the city seemed to fade into nothingness. With a deep breath, Leona extended her hand. The golden fruit nearest to her shimmered in response. The branch, instead of retreating, bent toward her, offering itself like a whispered secret. As her fingers curled around the fruit, a gentle warmth spread through her palm, and for a fleeting second she swore she felt something. A heartbeat. Gasps erupted from the onlookers. A woman clutched her chest in disbelief. A young boy muttered a prayer under his breath. No one could understand what had just happened, but one thing was clear. Leona was the only one the tree had chosen. Murmurs spread like wildfire through the crowd. Eyes darted between Leona and the fruit she held, disbelief and intrigue colliding in their minds. Some whispered prayers, others exchanged knowing glances, as if some old legend had suddenly come to life before them. Basil's expression darkened. He was not a man who liked to be outmaneuvered, and certainly not by a girl who had always been beneath his notice. His fingers twitched at his sides before he forced a smile, the kind that masked irritation beneath a layer of practiced charm. "You don't understand what you've just done," he said, stepping closer. This is bigger than you. Hand it over." Leona took an instinctive step back. She wasn't sure why, but something in her gut told her not to let go. She shook her head, gripping the fruit tighter. A ripple of unease coursed through the crowd. If the fruit truly possessed something special, was it meant for one person alone? What did it mean that only Leona could touch it? A voice broke through the tension. "Maybe she's the chosen one," an elderly woman murmured, her wrinkled hands pressed together. "Maybe this tree has a will of its own." At that, a spark of fear ignited in some of the onlookers. Chosen? By what? For what purpose? Basil saw the shift in the air and seized the moment. "She's just a girl," he scoffed. "There's nothing mystical about this. But think, if this fruit is worth something, who do you think will come looking for it? The government? The rich? Do you think they'll let a child keep it?" The words sent a shiver down Leona's spine. She hadn't thought about that. Would they come for her? For the tree? The branches above rustled, as though responding to her fear. The air around Leona grew heavier. What had started as awe was now laced with something darker: suspicion, envy, fear. More voices rose from the crowd, their words tangling together in a web of doubt. She shouldn't keep it for herself. What if it's dangerous? Basile seized the moment. Listen to them, Leona. This isn't just about you. Do you really think you can handle the responsibility of something this extraordinary? His voice was smooth, persuasive, but Leona heard the hunger beneath it. Before she could answer, a black car pulled up at the edge of the gathering. The murmurs died down as a tall man in a pristine suit stepped out, his sharp gaze sweeping across the scene. His presence alone commanded silence. Hamilton. Leona had only heard his name in passing, a man of wealth, influence, and ambition. He didn't approach the tree like the others. Instead, he studied it, his expression unreadable. Then, with an effortless charm, he turned to her. "You have something remarkable in your hands," he said. "Something that could change lives. The question is, what will you do with it?" Leona's grip tightened around the fruit. For the first time, she realized she had a choice. Leona felt every gaze pressing down on her, waiting, expecting. The weight of the fruit in her hand was nothing compared to the decision she now faced. Hamilton's words lingered in the air, an open door leading to countless possibilities. Basile crossed his arms. "We all know what needs to happen. Hand it over, Leona. This isn't a fairy tale." A younger voice cut through the tension. "What if she's meant to keep it?" It was a boy, no older than 10, his eyes wide with curiosity rather than greed. His simple question rippled through the crowd. Hamilton's lips curled into a slight smile, but his eyes remained calculating. "No one should bear such responsibility alone," he said smoothly. "Leona, I can help you. I have resources, knowledge, but more importantly, I can ensure your safety." The words should have reassured her, but something about them felt off. Was he offering help or laying a claim? The tree's branches swayed, though there was no wind. Leona inhaled sharply. She had spent her life unseen, unheard. Now, in a moment that would define her future, she finally spoke. "No." Gasps rang out. Basile stiffened. Hamilton's expression flickered with something unreadable. Leona squared her shoulders, gripping the fruit tighter. Whatever happened next, this choice was hers, and hers alone. A heavy silence fell over the gathering, stretching long enough for the distant sounds of the city to creep back in. The honking of impatient drivers, the rhythmic beats of a street performer's drum, the chatter of a world that had no idea what was unfolding here. But within this space, time seemed frozen. Leona's single word, her quiet yet firm "no," had sent a ripple through the crowd. Some looked on in awe, others in disbelief, and a few, like Basile, were seething. Hamilton, however, remained unreadable. He studied her, his sharp eyes betraying neither disappointment nor anger, but something else entirely. "You're making a dangerous choice," he finally said, his voice composed, yet carrying the weight of unspoken consequences. "Do you understand what refusing me means?" Leona tightened her grip on the fruit. She knew. Saying no to men like Hamilton was never simple. Power, once challenged, did not retreat easily. Basile stepped forward, unable to contain his frustration any longer. "Leona, this is bigger than you," he hissed, his voice barely above a whisper, yet crackling with urgency. "You think you can just walk away with that? The government will come. The corporations. Do you think they'll let a girl like you, alone, powerless, keep something like this?" Leona met his gaze, her fingers trembling but not from fear. "Maybe they won't," she admitted. "But if I give it away now, without knowing what it truly is, I might regret it for the rest of my life." A murmur of agreement stirred through the onlookers. There were those who saw her as reckless, foolish even, but there were also those who saw something else: courage. Hamilton exhaled softly, tilting his head as though reassessing her. Then, without another word, he stepped back, signaling his men to leave. No threats, no demands, just a knowing look, as if he understood this was far from over. Basile, on the other hand, did not move so easily. "This isn't finished," he muttered under his breath before turning on his heel and vanishing into the crowd. Leona stood still as the gathering slowly dispersed. whispers trailing after her like ghostly echoes. Some people congratulated her, others simply watched, waiting for what would happen next. She took a slow, steady breath and turned back to the tree. The branches above rustled softly, almost reassuringly. Whatever path she had just stepped onto, there was no turning back. The story of Leona and the golden tree was only just beginning. She had made her choice, but choices always have consequences. What would come next? Who else would try to take what was now in her possession? And most importantly, was she truly ready for what lay ahead? Tell us, what would you do in her place? Would you have given away the fruit, or would you have stood your ground? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for the next chapter of this incredible journey. The tree's secrets have yet to be revealed, and the real test is just beginning.